Okay, my name is Salma Samar Damluji, and I think I'm an architect, or I'm an architect by training and profession. How I came across this is I was very fortunate on my first year at the Architectural Association, as it was during the summer break when I just finished my first year at the AA, and I went to visit my parents and had wanted to break the news to them that I was quitting architecture. I was not interested in continuing my studies, and it was by pure sheer, whatever you want to call it, fate maybe, or that a friend of mine gave me a book written by Hassan Fathi, and it was his first book, A Tale of Two Villages, Gurna. So as I started reading this book, I suddenly discovered that I didn't really want to quit studying architecture, but that I had been studying the wrong type of architecture. And 3 weeks later, lo and behold, I met the man, just by, again, pure coincidence, in the same place. And from then on, I established a relationship with him, and I went and visited him in Egypt. And on my year out, in 1976 at the AA, I went and worked with him for a whole year. So that kind of shaped what I was looking for, and created a passion that I've since developed and had for the longest time. And when I finished my studies and went back to Beirut in 1978, shortly after, in 1980, I was offered a post in the Human Settlement Department at the United Nations ECWA, which is called ESCWA now, which is the Economic Commission for Western Asia. It's now called the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia. And the first posting I had was to be sent to Yemen, to Hadramaut, and that's how it all started. It hasn't ended, unfortunately. So then, and I grew very attached. I mean, being an Arab, I thought going to Yemen as an Arab country, you know, was easy, but it was like going to a completely foreign country. I couldn't understand the language, I couldn't understand the dialect. It took me a very long time to acquire and understand and be able to speak it. I was a woman, I was young, I was good looking, so it was very difficult to manage my way around there being on my own. It was extremely difficult terrain. I think I must also admit that there's a lot of self-fulfillment, in the sense that when I went there, I was not only the only woman there doing this work, but in many cases I was the first kind of foreign architect, or architect per se, to set eyes on these sites. So I felt I had a role, you know. I felt I had a very important role to kind of convey this, study this, institutionalize this, and create centers of learning that can impart this information and teach students there about this architecture, and not about imported curriculums that come from second-hand universities, whether in the West or in other Arab countries. So I was teaching as well, and lecturing here, and I mean in the UK as well as in Arab countries. So I was extremely passionate about it all. Earth buildings in Yemen, I wouldn't call them earth buildings. I would be more specific, because there are various types of buildings that use materials which are from the very soil, or the earth, or the ground, or mountains, or wadis, or whatever you want to call them. And these are three main types: the stone buildings, the mud brick buildings, and the shale buildings, buildings made out of shale as basic materials for constructing walls. Now, how they're made is extremely complex, because Yemen is one of the most sophisticated civilizations that has maintained and continued to construct its buildings and its architecture with these materials. So that would need kind of several hours of discussions to be specific or even to be general, and generality isn't one of my good points. So, regarding mud brick architecture, which has been my speciality or point of interest for the last at least 25, if not more years, I've worked terribly in some great detail at establishing how these buildings are made, if you like. Just to work on 2 cities took me 6 years and maybe 2 years of editing all that material, which was published in my book, The Valley of Mud Brick Architecture, which is on Shibam and Tarim in Wadi Hadramaut. So, as I originally told you, I'm not an historian, so I don't like to attach dates to buildings. The work I've done, the buildings I've worked on definitely go back to 200, 300 and some more years. But we know for a fact that these buildings have been there since pre-Islamic times. So we're talking of civilizations as old as Saba and the Queen of Sheba. I do touch it, but then again in Wadi Hadramaut I discuss this, and I think if you go back to Genesis, you'll find the mention of both Shibam and Tarim and Hadramaut. Because when you've got 7 and 8 and 9 floors constructed in sun-dried mud brick, it's already a huge feat, both engineeringly and construction-wise. And when it comes to design, it's superior. So, you know, whether you construct palaces in sun-dried mud brick and can build up to 40 rooms and 40 bathrooms in one building, as in Khayla, for example, one just has to look and see, you know, why and what has made this kind of so incredible and amazing. You know, it's just that the current commercial professional sector isn't interested because you don't make money out of mud bricks anymore.